This is Shelton, cassette number 17, a talk delivered by Dr. Herbert M. Shelton at Washington, D.C. in July 1955.
Any wordy introduction that I might have to offer this evening about our next speaker would indeed be superfluous. I'm reminded of the man who introduced the President of the United States. He didn't have much to say. He just said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States." I'll go along with that in my introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Shelton. Well, I'm not the President of the United States. As a matter of fact, I couldn't qualify for the position. As a vegetarian, I never eat hot dogs. As a hygienist, I don't smoke. And as a busy man, I never learned to play golf. How can a man like that aspire to the presidency? Perhaps the office of President of the United States is an important one. I don't know. Personally, I'm of the opinion that it's not. But the subject that I want to discuss with you this evening, I think, is important. And that is mankind's quest for health down through the ages to the present time. As far back as recorded human history goes, mankind has been a collection of sick animals. And as far back of the period of recorded history as the archaeologist and the anthropologist can trace the remains of man, he was a sick animal. And all through the long ages that he has existed on the earth, he has been searching and searching and searching for health. He has searched for health through every possible channel. And at this point I am reminded of a statement that was made many years ago by Herbert Spencer. He said, "Mankind never tries the right remedy until he has exhausted every possible wrong one." And that has been the history of man's quest for health down through the ages. He has tried every conceivable wrong method of approach to the problems presented by poor health or by disease. Started out on the assumption that disease is due to an attack upon the body by evil spirits, by demons and devils. And the way to get rid of disease was to, in some manner, drive out or exorcise or cast out those devils. He resorted to all kinds of means and measures and methods to get rid of the devil. If a substance was so obnoxious to the human organism that the individual had to hold his nose in order to swallow it, and then the stomach would cast it up immediately, that substance was supposed to be exceedingly valuable as a remedy. That is, it was supposed to be just as obnoxious to the spirit as to the man. And the poor fellow would vacate in a hurry. If the substance resulted in nausea and vomiting or diarrhea or griping and pain and dizziness and other symptoms, it was an excellent remedy for trouble. Thus we developed our drug system, which today is no longer, in this country at least, engaged in driving out devils. Today, we direct our attention at more minute beings, evil germs, and still smaller beings, evil viruses. But we're using the same methods. We have the same concept of disease as did prehistoric man. It is an attack upon the body by an outside entity. And to get well, we have to cast out or destroy that outside entity. The idea that disease was due to evil germs persisted on down to within recent times. Less than 200 years ago, a group of priests in Milan, Italy, engaged in a contest to see who could cast out the most devils in one day. And the priest that won the contest is reported to have cast out more than 200 devils in one day. Casting out devils to remedy disease is still a common practice in India, in China, in Indochina, among the savages in the bush of Australia, among the savages in the South American and the African jungles. And there are even people in these United States, some of them not many hundred miles from the city in which we are meeting tonight, that still make efforts to cast out devils. The idea is by no means dead. Even though the great majority of the people in this country have traded the old devil etiology for a bacterial one. When they traded off their devils and got bacteria instead, they still kept their drugs. Bernard Shaw once made the remark about Lord Lister that all he did was to exchange carbolic acid for holy water. Instead of trying to relieve us of our devils, he tried to kill off the germs with carbolic acid. And thus we have been all through the ages seeking to cure disease by agents and means that were deliberately and purposefully destructive, because we were trying to destroy something that was seeking to destroy us. Mankind lived and moved and had its being in a sea of ignorance and superstition. And for the most part, it's still wading around in the murky waters of that same sea. Only in a very small part of the globe do the people today have an opportunity to acquire knowledge of truth, of demonstrated principles, of facts that will enable them to really and truly build and maintain a high state of health. A few moments before Dr. Gaiman was introduced to you, we were sitting back there talking, and I said to him this: mankind possesses enough knowledge now, stored away in its books, in its library. It has enough knowledge, and it has the resources, so that if it would make intelligent use of that knowledge and of those resources, it would be possible for the human race to have better health than any portion of it has ever enjoyed within the historic period. But we cannot get them to make use of that knowledge. They are so determined to kill themselves by self-indulgence that they close their minds to every effort to enlighten them. So that Sylvester Grimm made the remark more than 100 years ago that the grand experiment of the human race seems ever to have been to see how close it can approach the brink of destruction without realizing that it has killed itself. And that's what we do. All death or suicide. Even those that result in war. Any man who goes to war and gets killed commits suicide, whether he's a draftee or a volunteer. No man has to be drafted. I remember back in World War II, that was long before our police action in Korea. They drafted 16 million men in this country. Every one of them was afraid to say no because they'd put him in jail. 16 million men in jail. $16 million men in jail. All those 16 million men had to do was clench their fists and say, we won't go. And 30,000 politicians would have deserted the ship of state like so many rats deserting a sinking ship. But they didn't have guts enough to say no. So they went off and made the world safe for Stalin. Just as in the first one, they made it safe for Hitler. Who we're going to make it safe for next time, I don't know yet. I'm not a prophet. If we would exercise our intelligence and make use of the knowledge we possess and of the resources that are at our command, we not only could have health, we could have a world that is fit to live in. This nation of ours, this country of ours, could be made one blanket paradise. From the Atlantic to the Pacific and from the Great Lakes to the Gulf. But the one reason that you people are not interested in doing that is that you're afraid you can't become millionaires. Every one of you from the eyebrows up is a millionaire. You may wear overalls and work as a mechanic for 8 hours a day, but that doesn't make any difference. Sooner or later, you're going to make that first million. Now, I don't have any objection to you being wealthy. Personally, I don't care about money. I'd be perfectly well satisfied with 10 million. But if you had all the money in the world and remained in ignorance and continued on in self-indulgence, you could command the services of the finest surgeons and the finest physicians that earth has produced, and they could hustle you into the henceforth a little faster than the man down the street who didn't have money enough to hire a physician or a surgeon. Mankind lacks knowledge, and it is only within the past 150 years that he's had a factual basis upon which to build a genuine health system. Not until we learned something of human physiology did we have a basis upon which to build a system that would build and maintain health for us. An effort was made in the medical profession, by the way, at that time, to get away from the old devil etiology and the methods of treatment that had been built upon it, and to build a system upon physiology. There were a number of medical men, both in Europe and in this country, who sought to do just that. But they were drowned by the profession. And any medical man who tries it today will get his head taken off. The drug interests are more powerfully entrenched today than at any previous period of history. And any man who attempts to lead the medical profession away from drugs, away from vaccines, away from serums, away from surgery, and out into the clear light of physiological science and a practice based upon it, will get his head taken off. There were, however, men, some of them outside the medical profession, some of them within the medical profession who got out, who did succeed in building a science of health. That system they call the hygienic system. Now, up to that period of time, there had never been a medical college in all history that taught hygiene. There had not been medical men who gave any attention to hygiene. There was not a medical college in the world at that time that had a chair in hygiene. It was of no importance. They needed only their drugs and their knives and saws and their vaccines to restore people to health. As hygiene became more and more popular, they decided to follow the policy of the politicians. You know, the policy is, if you can't defeat your enemy, join him. So when they discovered that they could not destroy hygiene, and they could not defeat the hygienists, as a matter of fact, they were losing the battle. The hygienists got practically every law in every state in the Union governing the practice of medicine repealed. They got physiology and hygiene introduced into the public schools. They were making such rapid headway that the medical profession decided, well, since we can't defeat these boys, we'll join them. So they put in chairs of hygiene in the medical colleges. And they began to write and talk on hygiene and make a certain amount of use of it. And you know, what happened was it lulled the hygienists to sleep. I can take you back to that very period and go to the editorial columns of the hygienic journals and read to you, or let you read for yourself, the glowing statements of the editors of those journals that the medical profession has finally adopted hygiene. Our work is done. So they went to sleep, and the profession turned out for us a spurious type of hygiene. And that is the reason that we adopted at a later time the adjective natural. We now call it natural hygiene rather than just hygiene, as did Graham and Trall and Jennings and their contemporaries and immediate successors. Natural hygiene. And here is a system of health building, one that not only restores health but that maintains health, that is based upon sound physiological principles, demonstrated principles, and that will enable you to get well and to stay well, or to remain well if you're already well. Here is the final goal of humanity in its quest for health. Now, by this, let me not be misunderstood. I do not mean that natural hygiene has reached perfection. The early pioneers in hygiene established, demonstrated, and confirmed certain broad principles and based certain practices upon those principles. And they left it for their successors to go on from there and build a more perfect hygienic system. As time has passed, as we have carried on our studies, as we have had more experience, we have learned more. We know more about diet today than the early hygienists. We know more about fat. We know more of its effects. We know more of its application than they did. We know more about exercise and about sunshine and about all the other hygienic factors than our predecessors. But we don't know it all yet. There is still much to be learned. We're going to have successors who will carry on from where we leave off and who will learn more and improve upon what we bequeath to them. Hygiene must progress and continue to progress until we learn all there is to be known, if that is possible, about the relations of food to the body, about the relations of proper types of agriculture to food, about the relations of sunshine and of fresh air and of exercise and of mental poise or of lack of mental poise to the body. The more we learn, the more perfect can become our application of the principles of hygiene to the production and maintenance of perfect health. In other words, while we have found our goal, we haven't yet attained it in completion. We have the principles. We have part of the details. We must go on and fill out those details. One of the things that is very important in doing this is the education, not merely of more and more lay people, but the creation of more and more professional hygienists who will carry on the studies and the experimental work, and who will gain the added experience that will add increasing knowledge in the future. Unfortunately for hygiene, shortly after the medical profession pretended to take it over and become hygienists and pervert what little they did take over, shortly after that there arose in this country a group of men who attempted to found eclectic systems. They pretended, and I think in all sincerity, to select the best from the various systems, and they combined them into systems of their own. They sought, as they thought, the best in this system and the best in that and the best in the other, and they'd bring them together, and by that means they would have a perfect system. All this succeeded in accomplishing was to muddle the picture still more. Why? Because, in the first place, they had no valid principle to guide them in their selection. It turned out that instead of selecting, they merely collected. One man selected a certain amount of hygiene. He took a certain amount of the Swedish movement. He took a certain amount of hydrotherapy. And he took a certain amount of various other methods and systems that were in vogue, and he bound them together, and he called it mechanotherapy. He proudly boasted that he had selected the best from all the systems, and that he had merged them and harmonized them in one grand and glorious system. Another man gathered in herbs, Knights herbs particularly, homeopathy, other methods of Priesnitz, Cuny, and Wills, and Just, and other German pioneers of what they call over there nature cure. And he bound them together, but he took a little hygiene and put in with it. You know, when you bind together sand, you have to have a little cement to hold it together. So they used a little hygiene to hold together the sand that they had accumulated. And they called it naturopathy. Another man did the same thing, and he stressed more than anything else cold water and manipulations and early diagnosis. And he called his system natural therapeutics. And then another man went through the same kind of selecting program, and he built a system that he called sanipractic. Another one did a lot of selecting, but less than the other fellows. He took in more hygiene and less of the other things, and he called his system physicaltopathy. System called physicaltopathy, which was builded by Bernard McFadden, was the closest approach to the old hygienist of any of these eclectic systems. But the result of all this effort to select the best from systems that didn't have any best to start with and bind them together was simply to create confusion worse confounded. These schools have about had their day. The sanipractic school is out of existence. The school of natural therapeutics is gone. The school of physicaltopathy has passed to limbo. The mechanotherapy school, I believe they've got one struggling representative left, or it may be closed. It was in Cleveland. The school of naturopathy, they've got 2 or 3 one-horse schools left. But the instructors in them and the students that go to them are all dissatisfied with them, and they're having a difficult time keeping their heads above the water. There is nothing left of all that effort at selecting the best from all the various systems and combining them into one grand system There is nothing left except a little shouting. And some of them are not even able to shout. For you and for the people around you, now is the best time in history to learn and to appreciate the principles and the practices of natural hygiene. Now is the time when you can understand hygiene without being confused by all kinds of clamoring cults and sects, each of which claims we are the true way of life. Oh yes, there arose 3 other schools in the meantime. Each of them started out as drugless schools. One of them is called osteopathy. It has degenerated into a second-grade allopathic system. Another is called chiropractic. It is rapidly becoming allopathic also. And a third is called naprapathy. It has never been big enough to amount to anything. There is a group who call themselves physiotherapists, and they like to talk about physical medicine. Now, when you translate those 2 words, physical medicine, it means natural healing. And they propose to heal you with natural things, such as electricity, which is natural, but then so is the venom of the rattlesnake, natural. And with heat, and that's natural, but so is nux vomica, natural. And with light, and that's natural, but then so is a stone. And if one falls and hits you on the head, that's a perfectly natural occurrence. None of these things that they call natural are any more natural than a hurricane or an earthquake. And they haven't any more normal relation to your body than has that hurricane or that earthquake. Only in natural hygiene can you find a practice that is based upon the use of those things that have a normal relation to life. Only in natural hygiene can you find a practice that is based upon demonstrated principles. More than 40 years I have watched the coming and going of new methods, of new systems, of new miracles, not merely miracle drugs, but miracle drugless methods. Mental methods and physical methods, electrical methods and other types of methods. I've watched them come and I've watched them go. The melancholy procession of drugless methods of healing the human body has been almost as sickening during that more than 40 years that I've watched it as the melancholy succession of drug after drug to that limbo reserved for the cures that pass in the night. A little knowledge of history, of the history of the cures, would help a lot of people to understand the folly of endorsing and of getting behind a lot of silly notions and foolish practices as these arise on the horizon, make a great claim for themselves, last a few days to a few weeks, and pass away. There's nothing that they remind me of more than a skyrocket. When a skyrocket goes up, it thinks it's a shooting star. And when it comes down, it discovers it's only a burnt stick. And this is what they remind me of. They go up with a great flare of light. Red and yellow and blue and all colors. And they come down just a black burnt stick. Every once in a while somebody revives one and offers it as something new, because each generation, unfortunately, has to learn for itself. We never learn anything from the experiences of our parents and of our grandparents and our great-grandparents. History teaches us nothing because we refuse to use our intelligence. Any clever-tongued salesman can sell you a bill of goods. Years ago, when I was on the staff of the New York Evening Graphic, a well-known advertising man of that time made the statement that if they would give him $100,000, which would be about $500,000 at the present time, if they would give him $100,000 with which to put on a national campaign of advertising, he would sell the American people brick dust as a cure-all and make money. Does it sound ridiculous? He could do it. He could do it. He could do it even easier now because we have television. We bring it right into our homes now and have it going day and night. Not for you adults, but for the children. Every program is directed to the children. Have your mama run down to the store right now and buy a package of Cheerios and cut off that top off of it and send it in with a dime. And we'll send you a 4-cent article. The appeal is to the children, and the children harass their parents until they buy. And every few minutes, the child learns that king-size cigarettes, that filter-tip cigarettes, that our particular brand of cigarettes is superior to all others. Smoke my cigarette. Yes, we bring the adder right into our homes and put it in our bosom to bite us. And we call that advancement. We wouldn't do that if we were intelligent people. We like to think we're intelligent. Well, let us not forget that the intelligence test during the recent bloodbath that the world went through, when we again made the world safe for hypocrisy, that intelligence test shows that the average American adult has the intelligence of 11 to 13-year-old. Sure, we're a bunch of intelligent people. That is, we're just a little bit more intelligent than the crawling worms of the dust. And much of this is due to the fact that we have never put forth any effort to develop our intelligence. Intelligence can be developed so that it can be used just as you can develop your muscles and use those. But we don't do it. We prefer to let somebody else do our thinking for us. And you know what he does? When you let somebody think for you, he always thinks to his own advantage. Usually his financial advantage. And our civilization, as we call it today, especially this form that we call Americanism, it's peculiar how we love Americanism. We don't like foreignisms, we like Americanism. Of course, when you stop to think about it, Catholicism came from Europe. Protestantism came from Europe. Capitalism came from Europe. I don't know what we've got over here that's Americanism, but we like to talk about our Americanism. And one of the principles of Americanism is to get the advantage of the other fellow and choke him until he coughs off every penny he's got. Imagine a Jew standing up before an audience and shouting for Americanism and hanging on to Judaism. A Christian standing up and shouting for Americanism and closing his eyes to the fact that his Christianity was born in Jerusalem. No, we believe in Americanism, but we don't know what it is. We can't define it. What it actually is, it is a fog that we put before our eyes to prevent ourselves from using our own brains and seeing things as they are. We befog our intellects with slogans of that kind, instead of getting down and using our heads. Every once in a while I tell somebody that I think the world would be better off if we could abolish these things that we call governments or the state. And they will tell me, well, everything needs a head. And of course I know at once that that particular fellow needs one. It's too bad we can't provide one for him. He needs it. Everything needs a head. But he needs a head that can be used and that he will use. that he will think with, not merely believe and emote and follow the leader. Look what Germany got into by following the leader. And what Italy got into by following the leader. And we could get into the same muss by following the leader. Let us learn to think for ourselves. Let us acquire knowledge for ourselves. And let us provide some means of imparting knowledge to those who seek it, to those who want it. Do you have a little knowledge of hygiene? Well, don't hide it under a bushel. Spread it among the people around you. Talk to them. Tell them about it. Lend them your books and your magazines. Persuade them to subscribe for magazines dealing with natural hygiene. Get them to buy books for themselves. Get them to read. Get them to think. Let's spread this gospel of natural hygiene. A gospel of health by healthful living, not by treatments, not by killing bugs, not by taking out organs. Somebody told me only the other day what one tonsil said to the other. Said, "Dearie, put on your best dress tonight. The surgeon is going to take you out." Why is he going to take out your tonsils? Simply because you're too ignorant to keep them. And so, of course, he wants the money. He knows that taking out your tonsils is going to do you no earthly good. But the money that he transfers from your pocket to his is going to do him some good. Perhaps his wife needs a new hat. Perhaps he's behind with his garage bill. Perhaps his son is developing an inferiority complex because he's got a patch on the seat of his pants. It doesn't matter, you need an operation. What you need to have cut out is not an organ, but your bad habits. If you just cut those out, you can save your organs. And then you won't always go going around to these organ recitals and vying with the other fellow to make him think that your operation was more serious than his. I say again, let us spread this gospel of health by healthful living. Let us help the rest of mankind attain to that goal for which man has been seeking, to our definite knowledge since long before the dawn of recorded history. If we'll do this, our children and our grandchildren will rise up to praise us, to thank us. If we don't do it, they may have plenty of cause to curse us.
Have you all received a slip of paper to write your questions on?